Alright guys, this is another devlog for my game Boots on the Ground. If you remember last time I had showed you some of the pathfinding that I've done and some of the basic graphics and a little bit of the gameplay. So over the last week I've worked on a couple of things, the first one of which was this node-based navigation system. So if you remember in the first video I told you that I was using the built-in navigation mesh. That's this blue generated map, and the reason I don't want to use it 100% of the time is because I plan to have several hundred soldiers on screen in some of these levels, and using the nav mesh takes a lot of computational power, and if I can simplify that down for when I don't need it, I'd rather do that. So what I've done is I've created a system using Godot's built-in A-star method, which is a pathfinding algorithm, and I wrote an add-on, which I'll hopefully be putting on the Godot asset page once I get it completely finished, that allows you to drop in little node points onto a map and connect them with these colored lines. The colors are just to make it easier to visualize which nodes are connected where. And then when you run the game, the master node automatically connects and puts all of these points into a map that your characters can use to navigate around. And the benefit of this is, instead of having to actually be able to navigate a mesh, they literally just have to move in between these points based on their pathfinding algorithm. And what this does is allows me a little bit more flexibility in order to move characters around without a massive amount of computation, like I said. And this allows me to move them in a more realistic way than hard coding in paths for when I don't want them doing their own pathfinding. So instead of telling a character to move from here to here, I can tell the character that his goal is over here and then just let them find their own way to that goal in a slightly more dynamic way, but without the massive computation overhead of the step-by-step nav mesh navigation. The other benefit to this is that I can suddenly change a waypoint from here to here, and I don't have to have written a hard-coded path from here to here or from any other point. The character will automatically pathfind over to it. Now this does come with a little bit of a caveat that I have to make sure that wherever I put these points, they don't have obstacles in between, or the characters will try to walk right through them. But for basic, walking across a field or a road or down hallways, this is a lot less hard on the computer than the node or nav mesh would be. And I've actually implemented it in the level. You can see it right here. So this is the node map that allows them to navigate from the hangars and down into the base. So there will be mission markers in here that they're trying to achieve, just like real human soldiers. And unless they're being fired on or firing at the enemy, or the player characters, they'll be following this node map instead of the full-on nav mesh. And once they go into battle with the characters, they'll actually switch over and start using this nav mesh for a more fluid and organic movement style. I'm going to use this node map system in order to create a system of cover as well. That way they can hide from the player character and hide from enemy fire, somewhat like real soldiers. Another thing that I've been working on the last couple of days is the enemy AI, and that required working on two different things. One of those things was this view cone that allows them to determine whether or not they can see the player character. And this view cone basically searches out a certain distance ahead of them and off to each side. It's pretty good because you can actually still sneak up on them or come up from behind, but it takes quite a bit for you to get out of their range, especially if they've already seen you and they're tracking you, which they will be. So once you're inside this box, it tells the AI that there is a character within range, and then this blue detection ray here running across this way actually searches out the characters that are in range and determines whether or not they're inside the enemy character's line of sight. So if you're hiding behind walls or something like that, they can't shoot at you and they know they can't see you. Another thing I did while I was working on this just in the interim was changed up the collision system for the enemies. So instead of having one full-size capsule representing the entire enemy, I've broken it up. So this is the capsule that handles the actual physics for the game, that moves the character along, keeps them from falling through floors and stuff like that. And as you notice, it's pretty small, that way it's out of the way, but it still does its job. Instead, for player shots and things like that, and for bumping into objects and other characters, I have a body capsule and a head capsule, and these actually detect different things. So this head capsule will actually detect headshots and register insta-kills, and the same system will work for tanks and vehicles and anything else like that that can have a critical hit point. And then the body takes the actual regular shots at just whatever the weapon damage is, allowing for the object to take multiple hits. So the cool thing about this is that not only can I use it to do insta-kills, but I can actually do it if I take it way down, and I'm still trying to decide if I want to do that. But I can still use the system later on if I decide to allow the characters to be able to shoot the guns out of each other's hands and things like that, or damage a leg or an arm and limit their capabilities, make them limp. So for your own characters, like the soldiers you're commanding, you might be able to have one of them take a shot to the leg and it'll slow him down, and you have to slow down the pace of your game to keep up with him, or make a hard choice and leave him behind. So with the view cone and the ray tracing for the line of sight built up, I was able to start working on the enemy AI, which basically is just a finite state machine that tells them whether or not they're active, passive, whether they're in an aggressive frame of mind or if they're in a fearful frame of mind, and then switches between them and allows them to move and act accordingly. Now this is only about half done at the moment, but it works well enough to show you how some of these systems are working. Oops, I forgot to turn the base view back on. Turn that back on, and you'll notice the character is dismounting, and as soon as he hits the ground, you can tell he's walking around that drone right there, which means he's using the nav mesh, because at the moment he just walks straight through it to get to the node mesh if we were using that nav system. So he's hunting me down. That means he's in hunting mode looking for me, and you can tell if I go in different directions, he's going to follow me in different directions. I don't have him set up to shoot at me just yet, but the basic code is already set up for that. And you'll notice that if I shoot at his body, it takes multiple shots to kill him. But if I restart the game and I get a really good accurate shot into his head, he dies instantly. That took a little bit of implementation due to some of the funny ways that Godot's code works, but all in all, it wasn't too bad, and certainly easier than some coding challenges I've had. One last thing that I was able to get done, it's not a necessity, but I kind of wanted it just for the feel while test playing it, is that I've been able to get the weapon zoom working. It's not fancy looking or anything like that, but if I scroll forward, I get a zoomed in shot for fine detail headshots and things like that. It makes it a lot easier. So it really has a punch when I get way down here and it's getting harder and harder to see these characters. So if I pull all the way back here, it's pretty tough to hit these guys. But if I pull all the way back and then I zoom in, it's much easier to get a good shot while they're still far away. So that's all of today's devlog for Boots on the Ground. Hopefully I'll be able to get back to y'all next week with some more progress. And I hope y'all enjoyed the video.